Hi, everybody. My name is Amy Quesenberry, and I am the creator of Start with Compassion. And this is our first live event on LinkedIn. Super excited. We did one this morning on Instagram, and then this is quickly following it. So just really excited to be here today with my dear friend and colleague, Rebecca Ali. Rebecca, hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Here.
So I'm going to talk briefly about why I'm here, and then I want to turn it over to Rebecca because I think everybody's why is a little bit different, right? But when I created the Start with Compassion framework, the I in compassion, because compassion is an acronym, right? And it's for how you show up. It really can help you if you work the framework, it can help you show up as your best self, as a more compassionate person to yourself and to the people around you. So the I stands for interested, invested, turned intentional. And intention so much is the motor through life. When we think about wanting to get from point A to point B, intention is so much a part of that, right? We can want, we can wish, we can hope, but until we get intentional, we've just got dreams in the sky, right? So Rebecca and I have always had these fantastic conversations. She really helped me build out my Start with Compassion model further. And we've always had these fantastic conversations. And at the end, we always say, oh, we should have recorded that. And then this time we said, I think we should, or actually my marketing team came to us and said, you should do a live event. And so this for Rebecca and I is really a big being brave moment where we said, okay, we're going to get really uncomfortable and we're going to go talk about this live. So that's a big part of why I'm here today. Rebecca, let's hear from you.
Thanks, Amy. It's great to be here. A little out of my comfort zone, as you said, but that's okay. We're gonna get through it together. And actually, I'm gonna start. So, being intentional is really important to me, and it's something I've more recently in my life come to. Unfortunately, I wish it would have been sooner, but better late than never. But this morning, my daughter asked me, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing these live sessions? And I said, well, it's about being intentional. And she's like, yeah, but accidents are much more fun. And I said, yes, that's true. Until you find yourself at age 50 and you don't have a job or you don't have a savings account. And she's like, yeah, that's a fair point. So I think, from my perspective, you can walk through your life sort of, sleepwalking through it and just kind of going with the flow, or you can take control. And that's why I'm here today.
Yeah. And, that really is the heart of this chat. When we were planning this, I don't know if you saw this on social media, you may have noticed one of the slogans, which was be the bird, not the feather. It was actually Rebecca that came up with that. And when you think about that, you can be the bird making the decision of where you go, or you can be the feather where you're just along the ride. You're just along for the ride. You don't have any skin in the game, as they say, right? It's just like I like to say sometimes, there's a river and there can be a leaf floating down that river. That leaf may be having a fantastic time, but nothing that's happening to that leaf is because that leaf is making a conscious decision. And that's what being intentional is all about. It's really that, okay, this is what I want. This is some of the things that I'm going to do to get intentional. So in our Instagram session that we did this morning, Rebecca talked about some fantastic tools that she uses. And so I'm going to kick it on back over to Rebecca, and I would love for her to talk about that.
Yes. Thanks, Amy. Yes. And I'll preface this by saying that these are my tools that I find really helpful. And I'm going to start at a little bit back. So I am a recovering people pleaser. I am a middle child in an oldest child's system, like brain, body. And I tend to say yes to things, even if I don't want to do them. And so I did it again. I got involved in a situation earlier, I guess in the fall of last year, involved with my kids' school. I won't go into any more detail, but I just found myself hating every minute of it. And it was terrible. And I felt bad because I felt like I was failing the school and I was failing myself. So at the beginning of the year, I try to set intentions for the year, and I try to get a mantra word and all that stuff. My big intention was, if it's not a heck yes, it's a heck no. And the clean version of it is that's the clean version. So I stole that from someone. I know it's out there. I just can't remember who said it, but that really actually helped me begin this journey. And as I kind of went through coaching and different things, and in fact, I was in a coaching program and decided it wasn't for me. And I was like, you know what? This is not a heck yes. It's time for me to exit this class. And so that was sort of the first decision I made out of that little sort of one sentence, framework, I guess, if you want to call it that I used. And then I started researching burnout for my graduate program. And so I've spent 6 months learning what causes burnout. And one of those things is a lack of control. And that's a much different story and a whole show unto itself. But some of the techniques that you use are breathing techniques and different things to sort of center yourself and ground yourself. And we know this from yoga and from different self-care things. But what I've started doing is anytime someone asks me if I want to do something or I'm faced with a decision, I take a deep nose breath, I hold it, and I say, let me think about that. And then I let it out. And it actually does a couple of things. I have some generalized social anxiety. I'm shy, I'm introverted. I like to be in my comfort zone, but it actually helps me just calm my nervous system and tell my brain it's going to be okay. You have control of this situation. You have control of the decision. And is it a should do or is it a want to do? And then I implement my last framework, which is healthy, wealthy, wise, which I'm going to stop there for a second and see if you want to add anything to that before I dig into healthy, wealthy, wise.
Go to healthy, wealthy, wise, because then I have something I want to share that's going to put a little pin on it. But okay. Yes.
Awesome. So there, obviously there's a saying, early to bed, early to rise makes a person healthy, wealthy, wise. I just stole the end of that. And I said, if I'm going to spend my time, which is our only non-renewable resource, I need it to fill one of these 3 buckets. And when I think about healthy, I think about mental health, physical health, spiritual health, relationship health. All of those things are sort of combined into that bucket. And when I think about wealthy, I not just think about financial wealth, I think about time wealth. Is this time well spent? Am I detracting from my life or am I adding to my life, right? And of course, the financial part of it is there too, right? Is this a good investment of my time? And sometimes you do things for free and pro bono work and different things, which I do. But it actually is a benefit to me as well. And then wise, am I learning from this? Am I growing from this? And is this going to make me better at something I want to be better at? And so recently, and this is a little story, I agreed to do something that at the beginning, I was like, I really don't want to do this. I don't know why I committed. Yes, I do know why I committed because I didn't want to let the other people down. And so I agreed to do it. And then I was really resentful and I didn't want to spend time on it. And then I looked at my framework and I said, but wait a minute, this fits into your wise category. This is time well spent for you because it is going to make you better at doing this thing that you've agreed to do. And it was like flipping a switch from this sort of negative, I don't want to do this, to I have an opportunity to do this and I'm going to make the most of it. And so it was as I think about this sort of framework, that's how I'm approaching it. And I'd love to hear your thoughts.
So I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to start with the end.
Yes.
Because what you just talked about, so in the compassion framework, the acronym, right? The first S is silence the judger. And it's the single most critical component of the Start with Compassion framework. And what you did right there is you turned the volume down on that judgment, right? And you went, because you turned that volume down, you were able to take that deep breath, go into your body and assess, wait a second, let me think about my framework, this critical tool that helps you understand what's my true north, right? And figure out, you know what? I want to do this. I'm pretty excited about this. I get to do this. This actually perfectly helps me. Like this aligns to my framework. That's fantastic. The thing is that if you don't have tools, if you don't have a framework that helps you get your mind right, it doesn't have to be Rebecca's framework. It can be whatever framework you want. But if you don't have some type of tool, if you don't have some type of framework, if you don't have some type of process that helps you figure out, wait a second, is this a yes for me? Then I think it's important to really get one. And that's foundational. What being intentional is all about is, just like you don't just go to the store. Okay, I'm going to go to the store. Well, why? Do you have a list? What do you need to get? What are you going to do with those items? If not, we're just throwing money away because the food's going to rot in our refrigerator because we don't have a plan for how we're going to use the food, right? So I want to also dig a little bit deeper and talk about the deep breath that you take. So first of all, if everybody hasn't done that, like think about a decision, just do that. Just take a deep breath. My experience physiologically is I felt a question in my body. I felt it. And the reason why I'm going and why I want to spotlight this is because I actually experienced something yesterday. So Start with Compassion is my passion project, right? It is my whole heart, but I do actually have a day job. I work as director of training and organizational development for a fantastic company. It's called Rick Engineering. And we have a program there. It's called Cultural Habits. It was implemented by an external consultant and named Brad Brighton and our executive leadership team. And we have cultural ambassadors that really help to further integrate our cultural habits into the organization. So yesterday we were on a meeting with our cultural ambassadors, and Brad, our external consultant, played a portion of a video where this incredibly wise man, I cannot remember his name, this incredibly wise man was on this podcast, and he said, when you think about agreements, when you think about making a commitment to something, unless you have a whole body yes, there's a likelihood that not all of you is going to show up for this. And there's a likelihood that either it won't turn out the way you want, or you won't deliver results to what you would be proud of, or what their expectations are, whatever it is, right? And he said, it's important that you have a whole body yes. And that's very similar to what you were speaking of. Whole body yes is my head, my heart, and my gut. All of this is saying yes. The breath that you mentioned, Rebecca, that is how I could get to a whole body yes, or identify, because I took that question and it went from my head into my body, it went to my heart, and then it went down to my gut. I'd love to hear on the chat. Did anybody do that? Did anybody take a deep breath, feel it? Did you experience anything? I hope you're able to use the chat. We'd love to hear your questions.
I love that, Amy, while you're checking
This
the
is
chat.
the fun stuff about live, right?
Yeah, I think they can use the chat. When you were talking, and as I mentioned, I've done a lot of research on burnout, and one of the 6 key drivers of burnout is mismatch values, right? So that's, you don't believe in the mission, the vision, or the goals of what your organization is asking you to do. Mostly when we talk about burnout, we talk about burnout in the workplace, but it applies to your personal life as well. And so I think, it's not one that's talked a lot about because people are like, oh, I'm so tired. And that's really workload. Or I can't work from home all the time. Now I have to go into the office. That's lack of control. And so there are different components to that. But when I think about this sort of deep breathing and that whole body yes, it automatically aligns to that mismatched values. And how can we be true to ourselves, do the work that we need to do, and still feel comfortable and maybe, get as close to a whole body yes as we can, because obviously we're in some fortunate positions, some of us, where we can sort of be a little bit picky about what we do. But yeah, I think when I think about that, I think about, it's so important, because the fastest way to burnout is to be off kilter in one of these sort of 6 areas, and mismatch values, I think is really important.
So much of that is figuring out, what do I want to do? You talked about the people pleaser. This is, if I can be so bold as to say, this is a disease that, oftentimes societal, culturally, there's so many reasons. Maybe there's a family dynamic that, so many of us feel this people pleaser or this guilt or this sense of obligation. And suddenly we're saying yes to all these things. And then we're looking around and we're saying, absolutely none of this is for me.
Yeah.
There's this whole life that I have said yes to, and none of it is because I've created it, because I want it, because this lights me up. And when we think about Start with Compassion and our true north, which is how you show up matters, right? It's getting intentional. It's, what do you want your life to look like? That begins with your mindset, right? That begins with figuring out, what's my process, like you did? What's my process to make sure that as I navigate through life, which for most of us is incredibly hectic, there's a lot of stuff that we didn't ask for that comes at us, a lot of obligations that many of them we want, many of them we cherish, but others we're like, really, again? And to be able to sit there, and it's not about, and I feel like there's a fine line between being selfish, right? And then the other side is, if I show up for myself, how much better will I be in showing up for other people? I hear over and over and over again, people say, gosh, when I take 30 minutes for myself, 15 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it is, when I take a little bit of time for myself first thing in the morning, my days are so much better. But when I don't do that, I struggle. I really struggle. And that is because you cannot give what you don't have. And so when we talk about being intentional, so much of it is creating this world that you want. It's making difficult decisions. It's like when I don't know if anybody has gone through their closet and said, I don't know about all of you, but I have some clothes that just don't fit me anymore. They just don't. Okay, let's say it, right? And I had to have a difficult conversation with myself and say, listen, you really want to buy new clothes, okay? The only way they're going to fit in this closet is if you get rid of all these other clothes that not only are you probably never going to be that size again, you don't even wear that style anymore. Let it go. That's not yours anymore. You've evolved past that. But until you get real with yourself and you have those difficult conversations and you say, hold on, what do I want for my life? And then what's my process? What are the tools that are going to help me get there?
Yeah, I love the idea of making space. So when you're talking about your closet, you're making space, right? So if you are, and I think about this all the time, because at one point I was like juggling like 5 different projects and trying to finish my graduate degree and all of this stuff. And I was like, I don't have time to do what I really want to do. And I really struggle with that I should be doing this. Societal expectations. It is programmed into us from when we are children. This is who you should be. This is how you should act. And breaking that cycle is extremely hard. I see a coach. She's wonderful. And she actually really helps me like verbalize all of this sort of stuff. And, you know, you hear about journaling a lot. And I use this as an example because I'm like, I'm going to commit to journaling 5 days a week. And I'm like, and I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. I was like, why did I say this? And I was like, well, that's what you should be doing. Well, who said, right? Who said that? If that doesn't work for me, then why would I do that? So now I see a coach once a week who is my living, breathing journal. And as I told her yesterday, I said, I feel like the conversations in my head go from gas to solid, if you can think about sort of elemental things. But like when they're in my head, they're like a gas and they're floating around and I don't know. But when I tell them to you, they become solid. Mm-hmm. And then I can move forward with those ideas and I can move, you know, through the intentional phase of I'm going to get this done and I feel better about it. But writing it down just didn't work for me. And I always come back to them like, I felt like such a failure because I couldn't journal. I was like, who said you had to journal? And then it sort of broke open this should versus want. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, that was an expectation, a societal expectation of what's right. And what's right for me isn't right for everyone else and vice versa. So I felt that when you were saying clean your closet out and making space. And I was like, yes, you have to make space. And if something's not working for you, you got to let it go. You have to be brave enough to let it go, and courageous enough to let it go and really identify what's important.
And when we talk about, you know, the whole theme for this live session is getting intentional about being intentional. And it really is having those difficult conversations with you. It is really taking the time because there are thought tracks that are programmed. Either we program them, other people program them in us, and to challenge those belief systems, to challenge those thoughts in our head, you know. So I see DJ, hey there. I see, so I have to call it out. It's like a T-Tech reunion, right? We've got Paola, we've got Troy, we've got DJ, Mary Lou. I don't know if you worked at T-Tech as well, but I've got to call out the T-Tech reunion because DJ, Dennis Valente, actually was mine and Rebecca's boss. That's how Rebecca and I met, 13, 14 years ago?
Yeah, I think so.
And
more than that.
I know.
My kids will be 14 this year.
Yeah, okay. Thinking of thought tracks, I had a major confidence blocker. And DJ absolutely had to coach me. Every team meeting we would be on with our vice president, and I'd have to give an update. And I would be stuttering and stammering and a nervous wreck. And he's instant messaging me on chat. And he's like, take a deep breath. It's okay. And then afterward, he'd tell me, Amy, we all put our pants on one leg at a time. Like nobody's better. Nobody's different than anybody else. Just, it's okay. He's just a guy. It's all right. But I had this thought track in my mind that I was less than, that I didn't deserve to be there. I had a lot of work to do, right? But we have to challenge these thought tracks that are in our mind and say, who said, like you said, who said,
right.
Who said, right?
Yeah.
Let's go and recreate this. So it is 25 after. We said for these live chats, we really want to keep them around 20 minutes, no more than 30. So I do want to do a little temperature check here and say, just to see what the interest level is. For our next session, We're going to focus on prioritizing priorities. Because when we talk about getting intentional, hey, Deej, hold on. Let me unmute you. I'd love to hear your voice.
Hey guys, how's it going? I see
It's so great.
This is like a T-Tech reunion. Oh my!
Yeah.
So I saw this. I happened to run across this yesterday, and I said I had to join. And I had a meeting that I was just able to join, so I didn't catch the first half of it. But I'm just so proud of you guys and what you accomplished, and looks like you guys are doing great work, and excited to just see you and hear you and everything you guys are talking about. So
Thanks, DJ.
yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much. It's great to see you.
Yeah.
I unmuted Paola and Troy as well. If you want to take yourself off and jump in on this T-Tech love ride, please feel free. Say hello. That's the beauty of live, right? You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Hey, Paola. Paola, how are you? Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute, my friend.
Can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Ah,
Hi, how are you? So good to see you.
good to see
You
you.
have to come to Buenos Aires to do the next meeting then.
What's that?
Buenos Aires. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
I'm ready. Let's go. Hey,
No, these
Troy.
are relationships that you just never, you never kind of get over, So it's really cool. Really cool.
Trauma bonding, right, DJ?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
That's a little joke. That's just a little joke.
Well, hey,
Troy.
just wanted to say hello. Yes. Now I came across this the other day, so thanks, Amy, for the invite there. So it's great to see everyone for sure.
Thanks. This is so awesome. So Rebecca, the happy accidents, right? Like we had no idea when we came on today that we were going to have a T-Tech reunion.
Yeah.
This is absolutely fantastic. So while we have you as a captive audience, what do you think about prioritizing priorities as our next topic? How does that land?
I think it's important. So, I don't care what organization you work in. Prioritization, both business wise, professionally, personally, I think, is extremely important. I think, depending on the role you're in, the organization you're in, that imbalance, it rears its ugly head. So I think it's very apropos for sure.
Perfect. Thanks, DJ. Is there anybody else?
I was just I was going to agree. It is something that's extremely important. There's so many things that pull you in so many different directions. So being able to find a way to prioritize the things in business and in life are extremely important.
All right, perfect. So today's session, really, just to put a close on this, today's session was really about getting your mindset right? Intentionality, being intentional, it doesn't just happen, right? It's you need to take intentional steps. What is your process? What is your framework? What is your plan? Is your mindset right? What are you going to do when things fall apart to get back on track? What are you going to do when something walks in your front door and you're like, wait a second, that's not for me? What's my plan to say no? Or as Rebecca likes to say, give me a minute to think about it, right? What's your plan? Have that ready. That can help you show up as a more intentional person. So on our next session, if you're, I believe you're all following me, we'll keep you posted on when the next session is going to be. But it's going to be on prioritizing priorities. And it's really being able to look through and say, hold on a second, what is it that I actually want to do? And what are the steps that I'm going to take to make sure that I get that done? What are some of the things that we can do so that we can be more intentional? So we're going to dig into this a little bit deeper. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. This is our first live. It means so much that you all showed up. You have no idea. I'm beaming inside. Rebecca, I can't imagine being on this ride with anybody else, right? So Cheers, everybody. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care. Bye, everyone.
Bye.